So, well, all the questions that I'm going to ask you today are questions that were sent to me by Facebook members from various early years platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're happy, I'm just going to launch straight into the first question.
Yes, go ahead.
Terrific. Okay. So, first question. Do you have a personal philosophy relating to your practice?
Yes, I do. And I think over the last however many years that I have taught in nurseries, preschool and primary, I think it's actually evolved through that time. So my personal philosophy, and it was a bit of a light bulb moment one time when I was in a progress meeting. It was that I am the facilitator for children. I'm not a director. I'm not someone who's going to tell exactly children what it is that they need to learn. And I feel that the facilitator, the word facilitator to me is so important to just guide children, to sprinkle that challenge of whatever it is that where their play is taking them, and how important that play is in scaffolding what it is that they know and what it is that they learn. So for me, it's all about children directing me so that I can enable them to get the best and bring out them in their full potential in whatever it is that interests them. Whatever interests a child is going to interest me. And that's the mantra that I go along with, not only in my professional life, but also in my personal life. And with that, I think you automatically gain a faith in little people. You know, they are wiser than we give them credit for. They are more observant than we give them credit for. It's the little things that you see from the perspective of a child that really makes you think back and go, wow, actually, that's something that I have missed in my everyday life, or that clarity that you get from just sitting back and watching and observing. Again, feeds into the adult being the facilitator.
One of the teachers I'm going to be interviewing, Claire, she's an expert in an approach called in-the-moment planning. Have you heard of that before?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so the things that you're telling me just now, it seems you're really tuned into that same kind of line of thought.
Absolutely. And I think what's really important for any teacher, but in regards to early years, is in some instances, early years teachers are expected to function the same as a Key Stage 1, a Key Stage 2 teacher, etc., etc. And it's so far from how they work. They are unique in their own special ways as a Key Stage 1 and a Key Stage 2 teacher. So when a teacher, a practitioner, an early years specialist, you know, finds the confidence to move away from that expectation in a school, and you have to really be confident, I think, in going with your gut feeling and putting those children at the centre of everything that you do, is the moment that you go, no, I'm going to function differently, because the needs and the wants and the interests of the children are so drastically different to what the curriculum is guiding for Key Stage 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So, for example, and this is a big bugbear of mine, is when an early years teacher is expected to hand planning in on a Monday as to what's happening on a Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. It just does not serve any purpose whatsoever. So, you know, just making small changes and having that dialogue with the SLT or a phase leader of saying, you know, this is not the way that early years is working, and I'm happy to hand my planning in on a Friday because it's a working document. And so that as an example, I think, is where in the moment planning comes from. The annotation, you know, why has this child or group of children decided that this is their interest today and running with it? And because it's a skills-based curriculum, the skills can be applied in absolutely everything. So yeah, having the autonomy and confidence to address that and go with the in the moment, and that's where you get the higher levels of engagement and the higher levels of deeper understanding, especially with boys as well. You know, there's the cliche of the boys not being able to finding it difficult to write or read, and girls excelling in the data, maybe because it's not what interests them. You know, so having the confidence to step back, and that again coming back to the facilitator element of my philosophy for teaching, it really does underpin in the moment planning.
Thank you. That's a great answer, Claire. And I suppose as a practitioner, if you think along the same lines as people like yourself, you just hope that the management have that same kind of flexibility and you know, belief as well, because a lot of them are put under pressure with the curriculum and performing. So it can be quite difficult. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think the first and most important element of that relationship between teachers and SLT and teachers is communication. Mm-hmm. And not justifying your decisions, but having that trust in the relationship and the team is very, very important.
Yeah, great. I think some really important points you've raised there for sure, Claire. And is there anything you would have done differently in your career?
I think looking back as to where early years was, say, 15 years ago, to where it is now, the biggest thing for me is the element of play. Very much so. Play, you know, 15 to 20 years ago, I think was seen as something that was a reward. The best form of learning is play, and we're only starting to realise this maybe up until 2 or 3, maybe 5 years ago. And again, it wasn't a bigger movement as it is now. So if I was to go back and do something differently in my career, I would say I would have used play much more in my assessing of children, and not using it as the reward as it was back then. And it has really turned my head with regard to how much children use their everyday life experiences in their play. You know, it's very, very telling, and I think it's fantastic.
It makes me think of a quote that I can't actually quote to you just now, but it was a child psychology expert, and they said for us to learn something, we have to do it over 100 times.
Oh, I know the quote you mean.
Do you know the one I mean? But if you do it through play, it comes to you within about a dozen times of doing it.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly.
It hits the nail on the head. It really, really does. And the opportunities that children are given nowadays in continuous provision, it's excelled so much compared to 15 to 20 years ago. So I definitely celebrate that. And I'd go back to the point of I really wish that in my university that I attended to, that it was hit more on as directed as to this is what you should be doing, and there's so many fantastic ways to go around it. So the curiosity approach, in the moment planning, the Montessori, it's finally being celebrated, because as an adult, you and I, you know, when you look back on your childhood years, it's play that you probably look back on the fondest, on falling out of a tree and spending hours in the woods. And, you know, one of my fondest memories is my gran. She used to live with us. And my brothers and I and the children in our neighbourhood, we would all go down to the woods. We would just go off for hours and hours and hours on end. And it was that call at about 6 o'clock at night with my gran going, "Dinner's ready!" And we'd all slump and go,
Yeah.
Because we'd had such a good time without any adults involved, and just having that good relationship and getting dirty and getting stung. And my fondest memories are when it all involves play.